Hello everyone, so I just want to talk about the legal aid system in terms of people who are on social welfare and job seekers, whatever it may be, or simply they can't afford it or whatever the situation, the personal situation is. Now, I'm sure we would all agree everybody has a right to speak to an attorney, to speak to a lawyer, to speak to whoever, um, before they're charged, before they're in court, take for example, for a crime or a suspicion of a crime or whatever, or the guards of evidence or whatever, a civil case, whatever it may be. You have a right to speak to some kind of legal representative to get some kind of legal advice, or to have them present in the court, or to represent yourself. But in some instance of the legal aid where you don't pay yourself, take for example, if I go to court now in the morning, I would have to pay out of my own pocket because I'm not on job seekers, not on the social welfare. I'm a working person that works a 40-hour week. I have to pay it out of my own pocket. Take for example, if I'm punched in the face on the street, I have to fork it out of my own pocket to go to court about it. That makes sense, to get myself a solicitor myself. But say for example that was someone in social welfare, they would get free probably legal aid depending, because again the judge doesn't look at how much they own, what property they own, how many cars they own, etc, etc. We've seen instances across the past of drug dealers, gangsters who have big properties worth millions a year on social welfare and they get free legal aid. It doesn't make any sense because especially these gangsters have big properties, big cars. You're multi-millionaires pretty much, and they're on social welfare first of all, which is a joke. Second of all, that the state gives them free legal aid, because it's happened before and it's a joke. And these are mobsters with three or four, or more than three or four convictions, maybe 50 convictions in some cases. But there is an incident of an Irish man down the country, and he's cost the Irish taxpayer 150,000 or something like that, give or take. For the last 20, he's committed 20 offences in the state, ranging from burglary to robbery, and to grand larceny, theft, etc., etc. But pretty much for the last few years, he's been in and out of prison for the last 20 times, and again, he's on social welfare. And he cost the state 150,000. What I mean by that is, you and I had to pay for it because he didn't defend himself in court. He had to get a public defender, which is paid for by you and me. But in that instant, I don't take, if somebody commits a crime, and I think there should be a limit on how much times you get public defenders, because again, there's people with 50 convictions getting public defenders, which shouldn't happen because they're a nuisance to the state, they're a burden on the state in a way too, in terms of having to pay for them when they cause trouble all the time. But I do take, it should be limited about five in your whole life, five convictions that you get a free legal aid or whatever, four in some cases maybe you could argue. But take for example, there's a case in Monaghan at the moment with human trafficking, very serious offence, may I say, human trafficking people for money, etc. Of a Latvian man, convicted of human trafficking before the courts on human trafficking, and he's on disabilities. God only knows how he got on disabilities, because there's literally people I know who are nearly dead and they can't even get on it. There's people literally that have died and couldn't get on it. Like before they've died with illnesses, etc., etc. Still, they wouldn't put them on. They put them on the sick, but they wouldn't give them disabilities. Like you literally nearly have to be dead to be nearly on disabilities. So how he got on it, who knows? But there's questions around that too, how he got on it, and why he's in the state in the first place. What's his business here? He's 57-year-old, but pretty much he's getting free legal aid too. Because he's on disabilities, even though he's trafficking people. I'm sure there should be even though he said the same thing if he was Irish, the judge should be looking at how much property he owns, what's in his bank account, out in his bank account, to see can he pay for it himself instead of the Irish taxpayer paying for it. Because it's not fair that the Irish taxpayer has to pay it in these cases. It isn't fair. Simple as that. It'd be different if it was only a once-off incident, and it was somebody that was genuine couldn't pay it, who had no money or whatever the story may be. But the only thing the judges go off is that they hear that you're on disabilities or job seekers or on the sick or whatever it may be. And straight away they give you free legal aid when they hear that. They don't ask questions. They should ask questions. How much do you get? Or how much is in your bank account? What is your property? We want to list your property. I'm not saying about seasonal property and stuff, but if they have a house worth €6 million, I'm sure they're going to have money to pay for it and to keep it up, and if that makes any sense. Because I've seen before people with TV licenses who generally couldn't afford to pay it because they were a single mother with 2 or 3 children trying to get them to school, and the courts would convict them obviously and fine them to oblivion. And there'd be no such thing. I think in one case too, there was a woman denied legal aid because she didn't pay her TV license, and they were very upset about that. Like, this is the thing in the state, they get very upset if you don't pay the TV license. But if you commit a murder and you can't afford to pay an attorney, the state will pay for you. Great stuff. It's a mighty state, isn't it? But I do think we should look at it, because it is being abused. In theory, it's a good concept, because again, people have a right to having the feds. I do believe that they do have a right to the feds. But I don't think the Irish taxpayer should be, in that case, the man with nearly 20 convictions. I think it's a joke that the Irish taxpayer is still paying for it. He should have to go up himself and speak to the court himself every time he commits a crime. He should, because the Irish taxpayer shouldn't be paying for a public representative for a man that's committing crimes every day of the week. Shouldn't have to. Generally shouldn't have to. And this man's only in his early 30s, late 30s, I think. Something around that. But the Irish taxpayer shouldn't have to pay for it. Shouldn't have to pay, or he should go out and work for the money and owe it back to the courts and the state. But, they won't do that. But I do think that's fair in terms of people who generally can't afford to get a legal weapon. But I do think we should look at it more. We have to talk about it. In democracy, we have to talk about it. Because it is being abused. And there's people literally up before Judge Nolan of serious sexual crimes against children. And they're getting free legal aid, the whole shebang. It doesn't make any sense. And these are serious crimes. And they get free legal aid like it's not. But it costs a huge amount of the taxpayer. Like, I don't even know myself. I tried to figure this out. And I've looked it up. How much exactly does it cost to the Irish Exchequer every year in terms of legal aid? And it could be nearly €1 billion. Who knows? But it's a lot of money. The estimate I got, it was around over 100 million anyway. Definitely. But it's not confirmed now, but pretty much it's nearly over 100 million. What I'm seeing, because again, it's very hard to find that out. We probably have to somebody probably look for it eventually. But how much does it cost a year for the state? So what I got was about 100 million, which maybe is why it could be 200 million. But give or take, people with convictions for different crimes, even if it's small crimes, the state pays for it. So it probably does add up to good, because lawyers and barristers can charge whatever they like. There's no way they do whatever they like, pretty much. There's no way, they're not really telling them whatever they want to charge, especially when it comes to the state. I know a lawyer, I used to know a lawyer, and any time it's to do with the state, in terms of bringing the state to court over different things. There was one time he went to the person that contracted this lawyer out, not contracted, but employed this lawyer to fight their case in court, was to do with the county council. They were bringing the county council to court over damage to their car because of a pothole. And he would loved it because they won the case. But he got a huge lump of money because he was able to charge the woman plenty because it's the government, and the government had plenty of money. So that's what they like. It's the same with immigration lawyers. They can charge whatever they like because the government have plenty of money. But compared to an own individual, etc., that's the thinking of lawyers, that the government, you're bringing the government to court over something, you can charge whatever. Or you're fighting the government in a case, you can charge that you're the moon out and stars. But let me know what you think, because it's something that we do have to talk about as a state. But I do think the concept of free legal aid should be a thing. It shouldn't be got rid of course. But I do think it's important that we look at it, because there should be some kind of safeguards. Like, we shouldn't be just giving blank free legal aid to everybody. That shouldn't be the case. And again, but I do think it's about fairness. I think that's the main thing I want to get through. That it's fairness, because there's genuine people out there who made mistakes, who committed one crime or committed two crimes in their life. Sometimes out of idiocy, and sometimes maybe they didn't mean it or whatever. Or in the instant of a moment, let's say just a theft. And some people generally can't afford a lawyer. But I do think there's people that are getting it that shouldn't be getting it. I think that's fair to say. But anyway, let me know what you think. And again, as I say, I do support the right for people to have legal representation and legal advice before they go into court or convicted of any crime. Because I do think it's important, because people wouldn't know their rights and what they can and can't do. But it is being abused, unfortunately, in a lot of cases. So let me know what you think. Subscribe for more, and bye.